Okay, so for this pre-recorded video presentation, we're gonna talk about Melanie Klein. So sa katong mga wala pa nagbasa, paminaw na lang mo aron masabtan ninyo ha. Isugdan nato. So pasensya na lang daan if dili ko mutan-aw directly sa camera kay ginatan-aw sad nako ang mga slides sa PowerPoint ug aron dili sad mo ma-distract sa ako. Okay, so Melanie Klein. Her theory is one of the most, well, dili man sad pinaka-weird. Pero isa siya sa mga pinaka-lisod i-explain if wala mo sense of imagination o syempre kung minus kayo inyong comprehension skills. Pero sa ngalan nga nisulod mo sa kurso nga psychology, dili siguro na no, ang case punta. So, naag dira sa slides iyang biography. Pwede rin na inyong basahon o memorizon kay as is man na. No need for further explanation. Ang ako alang hisgutan kay ang iyang relationship with her daughter. Excuse me. Kay crucial ilang relationship sa pagbuhat niya sa iyang theory. So, naa siya daughter ng pangalan kay Melita. So, kini si Melita, hate kay niya iyang mama. Niabot jud sa point na iyahang gikampihan ang anak ni Sigmund Freud na si Anna Freud na rival daw kuno ni Melanie Klein aron kontrahon o barahon ang mga teorya sa iyang mama. So hostile kayo sa iyang mama tungod manggod na kay gihimo sila sa iyang tulo ka igsoon og lab rats to mga bata kana sila para sa selfish goals sa ilang mama. So syempre habang dadako sila kung i-discuss ang mga teorya sa ilang mama, ang spotlight diretso sa ilang tulo. Mao pud siguro ang rason nga nung nagpakamatay iyang isa ka igsoon, but who knows, wala man sa gi-specify sa libro nga ano. Anyway, it's just very ironic because in her theory she said that the relationship of the mother and the child is the most important thing in the development of personality. So diba, what the fuck? So her theory is what we call objective relations theory. So timanin na. Objective, no, I'm sorry. It's called object relations theory. Not objective, object rather. So object relations refer to the objects, which is objects of the drive. So yung istorya nato nga nung gitawag niya og object relations. So Klein insisted that the infant's drives, hunger, sex, and so forth are directed to an object. This can be the breast, the penis, a vagina, and so on. So mga drives daw sa mga infants, as you remember, pareha lang na sila halos ni Freud pag-abot sa drive. Na sex drive, na ay thanatos, na ay death drive, and syempre na ay hunger. Kining physiological drive na hunger. So, kini tanang drives na ani sila yung mga objects. So, ang mga objects, mao ni sila ang ginakuha or ginagamit nila para ma-relieve ilang anxiety o tension. So, for example, you're hungry. Pasabot ana, you need something, and that something is food. Therefore, food is the object of hunger. Of course, sex is also a drive, and the object could be sexual intercourse, or the breast, or the penis, or vagina. Pwede rasan mag-solo play, depende kung sa'y trip ni mo, Lods. Pero, mao po na siya ang objects. Kunya, mas i-elaborate na ako sa later slides. Okay, according to Klein, the child's relation to the breast is fundamental and serves as a prototype for later relations to whole objects, such as I said earlier, mother and father. So according kay Klein, kay ang pinakaunang nga object na concerned ang bata kay ang breast, because the breast gives everything. It gives nourishment and sustenance to the child. Pati ang sexual needs sa bata kay ginahatagan daw sa breast. Pil na sa dito ang thanatos. Mao ni siya ang destructive needs sa bata. Thus Klein Klein's ideas tend to shift the focus of psychoanalytic theory from organically based stages of development to the role of early fantasy in the formation of interpersonal relationships. So, na-remember ninyo, si Freud manggod, obsessed kay siya sa iyahang, sa internal part sa tao. Ang iyahang id, ego, superego. Kung saan pag-interact sa tulo. Wala kayo siya pakialam sa social relationships, kung saan pa. Para sa iyaha, pare-pareha lang tanan tao, pati ang mga bata. Kay suko na daw sila daan sila mga parents. Kay wala lang, suko lang sila daan. Pero it's not the case. Kay according to Klein, pwede pwede ra daw na ma-change or modify ang personality sa bata. So mao to ang relationship of the child to the breast. Mao gina ang pinaka-importante. Ang relationship of the child to the breast. Kung gusto ba niya ang breast, kung good ba ang breast, or bad ba ang breast. Eh mo na siya ang mahimog prototype, mga ginatawag na prototype, or basis sa tanan future relationships niya. Kay mo ni siya ang ginatawag nato, dili lang siya limited sa food, ang breast, penis, vagina. Ang objects mong good will also eventually grow into the whole person na. So, the relationship na, ang mga relationship nimo sa mga tao pag-abot sa panahon. Okay? So, mo to siya. Sige lang, i-absorb raw, ginahinay kay ginang psychology. At first, the terms and words will sound weird, no? Pero, kadugayan, masabtan naman na ninyo. You will also learn the language of psychoanalysis. Thus, dili na po na siya weird kadugayan, kaya daga naman huwag ma-learn yung mga terms. Anyway, object relations theory places less emphasis on biologically based drives and more importance on consistent patterns of interpersonal relationships. So si Freud, nag-focus siya more on the paternal perspective, I think, yeah. I think low-key sexist si Freud. I think most of the men back then were low-key sexists. Diba, napansin ninyo? Ang yung mga terms kay naga-pertain yun just sa male aspect, like ang Oedipus complex, ang term nga phallus. Pero ano si Klein, no, that's not the case. Mas importante daw gihapon ang relationship sa mama because the mother is giving the intimacy and nurturing. And ang intimacy ug nurturing mo ni siya ang mahimong basis nato sa mga relationships nato in the future. Mao na ang bata nga mga walay batasan, mao ni sila mga bata na pinasagdan sa mga mama. Pero dili gud tanan. So, marginan ang narrative. Kung dili nindot ang object relation sa bata sa iyang parent, kay magka-problema jud siya sa personality development niya habang mature siya. So object relations theorists generally see human contact and relatedness, these two things, human contact and relatedness, not sexual pleasure, which mao na siya ang termi ginapush ni Freud, as the prime motive of human behavior. Mao sad ni ilang gikalahian. So mao siguro tong wala kayo siya gina-accept ni Sigmund o ni Anna tungod sa kanigid nga part ang palahi sa theory ni Klein. So tama man pud si Klein, dili ra man gud sex ang gusto sa tao. Ang gusto jud sa tao kay human contact and relatedness. Mao nang ubang tao na deprive sa human contact o relatedness, mao na sila ang naay pinakataas na chance na ma-depress. Kaya siyempre need man na sa tao. So let's see. Katupong mga walay uyab siguro, deprive sa human contact o relatedness, mao nang down ug sad sila most of the time, even though dili na nila i-admit sa ilang sarili. Although different drives may seem to have separate aims, Their underlying aim is always the same. It is to reduce tension, that is, to achieve pleasure. So the object of the drive is any person, part of a person or thing through which the aim is satisfied. Klein and other object relations theorists begin with the basic assumption of Freud and then speculate on how the infant's real or fantasized early relations with the mother or the breast become a model for all later interpersonal relationships. So karon timan-in jud ninyo na tanan nagasugod jud sa theory ni Freud about sa iyahang id, ego, superego, and mga drives like sexual drives, aggressive drives, death drives. Ang tawag ani ng mga theories kay psychodynamic theories. Psychodynamic theories. So tanan psychoanalysis-based theories, in psychology we call them psychodynamic theories. Tapos starting from Klein, ang tawag na sa ilaha kay Neo-Freudian psychology. Kay or man siya newer versions sa theory ni Freud. That's why they call it Neo-Freudian psychology. Pwede pod sila Adler o Jung, Neo-Freudian man pod sila, pero ang theories man gud nila, they're too distinct from Freud. So starting from Klein up to I think Erickson, I think ang basis nila is psychoanalysis. So mo nang gi-pattern nila ang libro para dali nato masabtan ang mga terms, kay mura siyang mga prerequisites every chapter para sa next na sad nga theory, para mas dali nato masabtan ba. Mura siyang step by step process. Kay kung dili ka makabasa sa theory ni Freud, di ka makasabot kay Adler, and then kay Jung, and then kay Klein, kay tanan manggod dira sa psychoanalysis na part. Nagsugod yun na kay Freud daw. Okay, so now where was I? Let's see. Nara. An important portion of any relationship is the internal psychic representations of early significant objects, such as the mother's breast or the father's penis, that have been introjected or taken into the infant's psychic structure and then projected onto one's partner. So diri ang theory ni Freud, wala kayo niya ginapakialaman ng mga bata, kay para sa iya daw, they're just a bunch of ids, not kids with a K, but ids, IDS. So individuals with no ego who can process anything. Pero ano po si Klein nga dili daw, kay pagpanganak sa bata na daw na siya daan id, ego, super ego, pero dili lang ina naka-develop, but it's still there. So whereas Freud emphasized the first few years of life, Klein stressed the importance of the first 4 or 6 months. Infants do not begin life with a blank slate, but with an inherited predisposition to reduce the anxiety they experience as a result of the conflict produced by the forces of the life instinct and the power of the death instinct. So bata pa lang, naan sila life and death instinct. So kanang mga tigulang nga nagaingon sus mga bata ra man sila, di man sila kasabot. Actually, kasabot yun na sila. Kasabot ng mga bata. Pero lahi ang method sa ilang pag-absorb sa action. So anything you do to a kid, ma-remember din na nila. Pero unconsciously, they'll remember it in a more primitive way. Mo nang mapansin ninyo na mga bata na ginapabayaan lang sa ilang mama, kay dili sila ina naka-close pagdako, kay they unconsciously remember things from their early infant years. So they have this fantasy. Ayun, fantasy nga. This is where fantasy comes in. So fantasies are psychic representations of unconscious id instincts. They should not be confused with the conscious fantasies of children and adults. So, timanin ninyo, ang fantasy ni Klein does not start with the letter F, but letter P. So it's spelled Phantasies, fantasies. Hindi na siya typo. So, di ba mga bata, dili man dyan na sila word for word ang mga panghitabo silang palibot, no? Dili man nila masabtan word for word jud. So, they have representations. Very archaic and primitive representations. And Klein calls them fantasies. So, simple lang siya, di na ito palisodon. It's either you're good or bad. So if the breast is not feeding them well, they associate it as bad. Pero if mabusog sila sa breast, then i-associate nila na sa good. Actually, yung bata, wala na sila pakialam sa mother. Sa breast lang dyan na. So good breast has milk. Ang bad breast, wala. So she simply meant that they possess unconscious images of good and bad. For example, a full stomach is good, an empty one is bad. Klein would say that infants who fall asleep while sucking on their fingers are fantasizing about their mother's good breast inside themselves. Hungry infants who cry and kick their legs are fantasizing that they are kicking or destroying the bad breasts. So, mga siyang fantasies. Next, syempre fantasies work in tandem with objects. Isa pa rin siya sa term ni Klein, isa sa term na appeal sa theory ni Klein, ang objects. Like I said earlier, they are objects of the drives. So drives forces us to do something to relieve tension. Usually to relieve tension, we need an object to achieve that. The hunger drive has the good breast as its object. Tapos the sex drive has a sexual organ as its object, so on and so forth. The earliest object relations are, syempre, napuganihan with the mother's breast. But very soon, interest develops in the face and in the hands which attend to his needs and gratify them. So, mga objects, nagasugod na siya sa mga simple things, and simple things, para sa bata, mauna siya ang breast sa mama. This is applicable for both male and female. This may also explain why, both males and females like breast. So, ganahan daw tag breast. I think this is because this is the first object that we have a relationship with, at least in our fantasies when we were younger. Pero siguro mas obvious sa males, kaya mas prone man sila to show their sexuality, and females are less likely to show their sexuality. Pero pareha na both males and females like breast, bisan i-deny na nila. So, tanan bata, nadyo na sila yung mga fantasies in regard to the object, pero habang gadako ang bata, nagabag-usad, depende sa circumstance and development stage. Pero si Klein, dili siya ganahan mo gamit sa word na developmental stages, kay ang gusto niya nga term gamiton kay positions, kay mas less chronologically constricting daw ang term na positions compared sa developmental stages. So, sa pagpanganak sa bata, naanaday na siya duha ka positions. Okay, diri mo sulod ang positions. So, diba? Perfect. Two positions, which is the paranoid schizoid position, mao na ang una og sa later infancy, kay diri mo sulod ang depressive position. So, in their attempt to deal with this dichotomy of good and bad feelings, life instinct and death instinct, sila. Infants organize their experiences into positions, or ways of dealing with both internal and external objects. So for the paranoid schizoid position, a way of organizing experiences that include both paranoid feelings of being persecuted and a splitting of internal and external objects into the good and the bad. So, nan siya sa mga bata nga 3 to 4 months old. Ang libro. So, diri na position sa word na paranoid kay ang bata kay paranoid. Kay dili man niya gusto ma-feel ang death instinct. So, kay dili man niya gusto ma-feel ang death instinct internally and externally, pasabot sa internally diri kay syempre naa siya aggressive tendency, then externally kay ang breast wala ginahatag sa iya. So para dili niya ma-feel na ma-persecute siya sa bad breast, ang iyang buhaton kay split na niya. So instead sa isa ka breast naanay duha, mao ni siya ang good breast nga giingon ako ganiha ug ang bad breast. Mao ni siya ang ginatawag na splitting. So if i-label niya ang isa as good breast, no, then dili niya ma-label ang isa as bad breast. Kay simple ra man yung tawag ng fantasy sa bata. Pero if himuon sa bata kay split ni niya, duha na ang breast, ang good breast ug bad breast. Kay iyang kwaon, well, so kung split niya good breast ug bad breast, ang good breast kay iyang kwaon and i-introject niya sa iyang sarili, bali absorb niya ba, then he or she will feel good, and then ang bad breast is i-project niya, labay niya sa lahi para mawala ang death instinct. Mao man na ang goal sa bata. So ang goal lang jud sa paranoid schizoid, ang goal yun is to get rid of that persecutory breast, no, may good breast, may bad breast, may persecutory breast na nag-cause og anxiety o discomfort sa bata. Okay? Muna siya ang paranoid schizoid position. And then eventually, maadto siya sa depressive position. So what is the depressive position? This is the feelings of anxiety over losing a loved object, coupled with a sense of guilt for wanting to destroy that object. So this usually happens when an infant reaches 5 months. So sa depressive position, eventually after sa paranoid schizoid, ma-realize niya na dili siya ganahan mawala ang object. So mahadlok siya, nabiyaan siya sa object, pero ang object dire kay dili na necessarily na breast lang. They will start to recognize the mother as a separate object. Pero syempre yung bata 5 months pa man, so breast ra gud gyapon na, no? So mao na siya ang sa depressive position. Okay, so I think the following slides will now be discussed by my group mates. I hope I was able to illuminate you kids on some of the terms and theories of Klein.
So, Rina, paday psychic defense mechanisms na nalimtan ako explain. Pero voice recording na lang niya, kay follow up na lang man. So, sa mga na-mention ako ganiha, di ba na ako yung mga naingon na appeal sa defense mechanisms like splitting, interjecting, o projection. So, these psychic defense mechanisms are used by children to protect themselves from their own death instinct. Kaya di ba, I've mentioned na duha ka instinct ang bata, mao ni sila ang life ug death instinct. So, para ma-resolve tong duha ug ma-reduce ang anxiety, nagagamit sila og mga defense mechanism. Ang una na defense mechanism kay introjection. So, diri incorporate sa bata ang good things sa iyang personality. For example, the good breast. And then, for projection, for example, naay death instinct ang bata, kay pasa niya dayon sa bad breast. Tapos, like I've mentioned ganiya, bisan duha ka buok klase sa breast, kay isa ra jud na sila. So, basin unsaon na nila og interject og project, if there's only one breast, wala gyud mahitabo, di ba? So unsa may buhaton nila? Dere musulod ang splitting. So they will split it. There will be then a good breast and a bad breast. So by splitting the breast, they can hold two incompatible beliefs at the same time. No, di ba? Woo! Amazing. Nga kasigis ko tugtutoy, no? O kani ang pinaka-last ug pinaka-complicated daw na defense mechanism ingon ni Klein kay ang projective identification. Mao ni siya ang combination sa introjection and projection. Sa ang himuon sa bata or even adults, for example na lang, ang mga bad instinct or impulses na naa sa ila is i-project nila sa isa ka tao. So usually mga kuan na siya, mga close friend or relatives, pero kasagaran ng mama gid na. So para malimpyuhan niya ang bad impulse or instinct, yan na siyang i-project. And then eventually pag nalimpyuhan na is i-introject na po na niya sa iyang sarili. So in a more simpler way of describing it, ani na lang. Sige, ani na lang. Naa daw kay hugaw na sanina. Tapos ipalaban nimo ni sa imong mama. Tapos kung limpyo na, suoto na nimo siya usab. So mao ni siya ang ginatawag na projective identification. So sa defense mechanisms, wait lang. Ang term guys, defense mechanisms according kay Klein kay upat ra ni sila ka buok. So introjection, projection, projective identification, og ang isa kay wait. Sorry. First introjection, projection, splitting, and projective identification. Known siya ang 4 psychic defense mechanisms according kay Klein. Okay? Okay.
Internalizations person takes in aspects for the external framework and organizes in a meaningful manner. 3 important externalization for Klein is the ego, superego, and Oedipus complex. Just like pareha kay Freud na ay ego, superego, and Oedipus complex. Si Klein. Okay? Ego. The ego of one's sense of self reaches maturity at much earlier stage that Freud had assumed. Freud hypothesized that the ego exists at birth. He did not attribute complex psych function to it until about the 3rd and 4th year. To Freud, the young child is dominated by the id. Klein largely ignored the ego's early ability to sense both destructive and loving forces and to manage them through splitting and projection. So ang superego man siya ang kay Freud ang ego ang ego na develop siya 3 to 4 year old. So kang Klein na develop siya much earlier kung kibali at birth siya. So siya. Ang superego moampo di siya ang nag-determine sa good breast and bad breast. The ego is mostly unorganized at birth but strong enough to feel anxiety, to use defense mechanism, and to form early object relation in fantasy and reality. The ego begins to evolve with the infant's first experience with feeding. With the good breast fills the infant not only with milk but with love and security. The bad breast, the one that is not present or does not give milk or love or security, all experiences are evaluated by the ego in terms of how they relate to the good breast and the bad breast. So mao to siya, mao lagi to siya kanang mostly dili unorganized at birth ang ego, but strong enough to feel anxiety, to feel the infant to feel anxiety. Mo ni siya ang gagamit ni siya defense mechanism, which is atong splitting, projection, and introduction. Then mo pa ni siya ang that determines sa determines sa good breast and bad breast. Example is when the ego experience the good breast, it expects similar good experience with other objects. So kung maka-experience ang infant og good breast, mag-expect na siya nga ang other object is similar sa good breast. So maka-experience siya nga, mag-expect siya nga makakuha siya good experience with other object nga good. So perhaps such as kanang own fingers, pacifier, or the father. Thus, the infant first object relation becomes the prototype not only for the ego's future development, but for the individual's later interpersonal relation. Next is the superego. Emerges much earlier. So, pareha gyapon sa superego, para sa ego, ang superego para kay Klein exists much earlier than Freud had speculated. The early superego does not produce guilt but terror. So kung kang Klein kung kang Freud ang superego nagproduce og guilt, pero kabaliktaran ang kang Klein. Ang kang Klein, ang superego is terror. So kanang terror means fear, or fear. Or the early superego was seen to be harsher and crueler. And produce not guilt but terror. Superego, this dual image of self, allows them to manage the good and bad aspects of external objects. Infants mature, their perception become more realistic. They do no longer see the world in terms of partial objects, and their egos become more integrated. Terror turns into feeling of guilt. This early ego defense lays on foundation for the development of the superego. Harsh and cruel superego is responsible for many antisocial and criminal tendencies in adults. So, ang superego is nagbilib mo lagi to siya as what I have said, ang superego kang Klein is terror. So it goes along with the Oedipal process rather than being product. So kumbaga it grows with the Oedipus complex. In superego, for instance, as a child, we avoid do something against the rule. By being extensively scared for something to happen or consequence, a scare or consequence. So, superego, terror, fear, kanang example kanang mahadlo kanang maingon ang mamag dili na siya pwede. So di jud na nimo siya himuon kay mahadlok ka sa consequence na imong maabot. So mono siya ang superego kay Klein. Next is the Oedipus complex. Oedipus complex begins during the earlier months of life, overlaps with the oral and anal stages, reaches its climax during genital stage instead of phallic stage. Children fears to retaliation from their parents for their fantasy of emptying the parent's body. Stress importance of child's retaining positive feelings towards both parents during Oedipal years. During the early stage, the Oedipus complex serves the same need for both sexes. So, ang superego, ang Oedipus complex is ang end goal sa Oedipus complex ni Klein. End goals of Oedipus complex ang end goal of Klein in Oedipus complex is for the child to have good feelings towards his parents, both mother and father. So ang end goal aning Oedipus complex is para ang child para na ay good feelings ang mga bata sa ilahang parents, both father and mother. Natay duha ka types of Oedipus complex, which is the male Oedipal development. During the early months of Oedipal development, a boy shifts some of his oral desires from his mother's breast to his father's penis. Diri na time man to ha. So diri ang bata na lalaki makita sees his mother's breast as both good and bad. Then during early months Oedipal development, a boy shifts same of his oral desires from his mother's breast to his father's penis. So makakuan siya at this time the little boy is in his feminine position that he adopts a passive homosexual towards his father. So makakuan siya homosexual. So ma-homosexual siya niya. Makakuan siya makagusto siya sa iyang father. Sa iyang father. Next, he moves to a heterosexual relationship with his mother. So next makakuan siya heterosexual relationship sa iyang mother. But because of his previous homosexual feelings for his father, he has no fear that his father will castrate him. So kay sato siya but because of previous homosexual feeling of his father, he has no fear. So kay nakakuan man siya relationship sa iyang father, so dili na siya mahadlok nga makastraight siya sa iyang father. So this passive homosexual position is a prerequisite for boy's development of a healthy heterosexual relationship with his mother. The boy must have a good feeling about his father's penis before he can value his own. So, the boy must have a good feeling about his father. So, mas una pa niyang ma-appreciate ang penis sa iyang father kaysa sa iyang own penis. Muna siya ko ang kuan. Mas nauna pa niya value penis sa iyang father bago iya ha. So, as the boy matures, develop oral sadistic impulses towards his father, wants to bite off his penis to murder him. So, kibali, diri sa mag-mature ang kung as ma-mature ang boy, maka-develop siya oral sadistic impulses towards his father. So, makakuan siya murag kibali hate kanang real kanang sadistic impulses to kanang murag kanang hatred ba kibali ing ana kanang ma-develops niya sa iyang father, and once gusto niya paakon ang penis sa iyang father and murder him. These feelings arose castration anxiety and the fear that his father will retaliate against him by biting off his penis. So, their feeling arose tungod sa castration anxiety. Tungod the fear convinced the little boy that the sex tungod sa castration anxiety magka fear ang boy to have sexual intercourse with his mother would be extremely so maka-realize siya nga hadlok tas mahadlok siya na ma-intercourse sa iyang mother kay mahadlok siya putlon ang iyang penis sa iyang father. Mahadlok siya nga putlon sa iyang father ang iyang penis. Ana lang. Because she saw partially his castration anxiety. His ability to establish positive relationship with both parents at the same time. Boy sees his parents a whole object and condition that enables him to work through the position. Next is the female Oedipus complex. Like the young boy, a little girl first sees her mother breast as both good and bad. Then, around 6 months at age, she begins to view the breast as more positive than negative. Later, she sees her whole mother as full of good things. So, and this attitude leads her to imagine how babies are made. So, diri na time kuan siya unsa ni kanang later on she saw mother of woman, and then attitude leads her to imagine how babies are made. So kuan siya curious siya kung giunsa ang baby ang mga bata paghimo. So she fantasizes that her father penis feed her mother with riches including babies. So diri ma-fantasize niya that ang iyahang father's penis mo feeds or gives gifts to his mother. Mao ni siya ang mga babies, because the little girl sees his father's penis as the giver of children. Mao ni siya. She developed a positive relationship to it and fantasized that her father will fill her body with babies. So mag-fantasize po siya nga that her father nga iyang papa kanang will fill her body with babies. Then in the female Oedipal stage proceeds smoothly. The little girl adopts a feminine position and has a positive relationship with both parents. However, under less ideal circumstances, the little girl will see her mother as a rival. So, makita na sad niya ang iyang mama as ang rival niya and will fantasize robbing her mother of her father's penis and stealing her babies. So, i-rob niya robbing her mother. So, rob niya yung mother of her father's penis and stealing the babies. So, makakuan siya nga steal ang babies. Just as the boy hostility towards his father leads to fear of retaliation, the little girl wish to rob her mother produces a paranoid fear that her mother will retaliate against her by injuring her or taking away her babies. So magka-develop siya og fear na sad nga kibali taguan man niya ang mga babies sa iyahang mama. So maka-develop siya fear nga fear of retaliation that nga mabalisan siya sa iyang that her mother will retaliate against her by injuring or taking away her babies. Ano siya and then the female then the little girl principal anxiety comes from a fear that the inside of her body has been injured by her mother, an anxiety that can only be elevated when she later gives birth to healthy baby. According to Klein, penis invades stems for the little girl wish to internalize her father's penis and to receive a baby from him. This fantasy precedes any desire of an external penis contrary. To Freud's view, Klein would find no evidence that the little girl blames her mother for bringing her into the world without a penis. Instead, Klein contended that the girl retains a strong attachment of her throughout the Oedipal period. So, makadevelop jud day og sa so kabaliktaran jud ay siya kang Klein ay kang Freud kay diri kang Klein sa final in ang final goal man aning iyang Oedipus complex is to have a good relationship of his both parents, mother and father. For both girls and boys, a healthy relationship of the Oedipus complex depends on their ability to allow their mother to come together and to have sexual intercourse with each other. No remnant or rivalry remains. Children's positive feelings toward both parents later serve to enhance their adult sexual relation. So next is the psychotherapy of Klein. Kung si Freud nagamit siya og dream analysis, si Klein ang gigamit niya is gigamit ni Klein is sa psychotherapy is asa na to asa na to? Si Klein is nagamit siya ang gigamit ni Klein is play therapy. Ano siya? Dira mao na ang gigamit ni Klein nga therapy, dili dream analysis. In addition to experiencing negative transference feelings, Klein substitute play therapy for Freud dream analysis. So as what I have said, wala na gamit si Klein og dream analysis. Ang iyang gigamit is play therapy. It is to foster negative transference and aggressive fantasies. She provides each child with a variety of small toys, pencils, paper, paint, crayons, and so forth. In addition to experiencing negative transference feeling through play, Klein's young patient often attacked her verbally, which gave her an opportunity to interpret the unconscious motives behind these attacks. The aim of Klein's therapy is to reduce depressive anxiety and persecutory fears and to mitigate the harshness of internalized objects. And that's on my part.
So, because of technical difficulties daw, dili makareport ang mga isa ka kauban about ani. So, ako na lang tubson. Bawi na lang daw siya sa next life. Okay, so eventually, ang object relations ni Klein kay gi-update. And ang mga updates came from 4 different theorists. So, kaning upat, mao'y nag-develop further sa theory ni Klein. So, ang pinakauna kay si Margaret Mahler. Pero, dili na kayo sila Freudian. So, wala na id, ego, superego kayo. Pero the focus on the relationship with objects kay naagyapon. So, dili na ni sila neo-Freudian. Matawag na siguro ni sila og mga contemporary. Contemporary psychologists. So, Margaret Mahler. To Mahler, an individual's psychological birth begins during the first weeks of postnatal life and continues for the next years or so. So, by psychological birth, Mahler meant that the child becomes an individual separate from his or her primary caregiver, an accomplishment that leads ultimately to a sense of identity. Kaya di ba pag bagong panganak ang bata, lisod kayo sila i-separate. Wala pa dyan na sila'y solid identity. Kaya ang mga identity anak nila, it's tied with their mother. It takes years for a child to gain his or her separate individuality. And when he or she attains it, pwede na siya makonsider, according to Mahler, as psychological birth. So the first stage of psychological birth is called normal autism. It happens in the first couple of weeks, approximately 3 to 4 weeks pa ang bata. So basically kanina stage kay naga-show na tanan na kailangan sa bata, naga-show natin na kailangan sa bata kay naa daw sa mother and ginahatag po tanan sa mother. So eventually sa second stage na anay mahitabo na normal symbiosis, 4 to 5 weeks old. So during this time the infant behaves and functions as though he and his mother were an omnipotent system, a dual unity within one common boundary. So kung una, feeling sa bata, isa ra siya kasama ang breast, syempre. Karon, sa second stage, na siya idea na there is another being. Kay, di ba, inana ang meaning sa symbiosis. Two beings helping each other to become stronger. Murag si Eddie ug si Venom. Anyway, diri ma-realize sa bata na naa pa di ay isa ka being na nagatabang sa iya. Dili ra day siya. And next, diri na mosulod ang separation individuation. So children become psychologically separated from their mothers, achieve a sense of individuation, and begin to develop feelings of personal identity. So dire makagain og individuality ang bata. So under sa separation individuation, it has four overlapping stages. So basahon lang nako. First is differentiation, 5 to 10 months. So it's marked by bodily breaking away from the mother-infant symbiotic orbit. Next is practicing, 7 to 16 months. Children easily distinguish their body from their mothers and establish a specific bond with their mother. They also begin to develop an autonomous ego. Third is rapprochement. 16 to 25 months. They desire to bring their mother and themselves back together, so both physically and psychologically. Last is the libidinal object constancy. Okay, so during this time, children must develop a constant inner representation of their mother so that they can tolerate being physically separate from her. So, mauna siya. Remember lang ninyo, under sa separation individuation is katong upat: differentiation, practicing, rapprochement, o libidinal object constancy. So, mauna siya si Margaret Maller. Next is si Heinz Kohut. Okay, so Kohut emphasize the process by which the self evolves from a vague and undifferentiated image to a clear and precise sense of individual identity. So, infants require adult caregivers not only to gratify physical needs but also to satisfy basic psychological needs. Ana daw si Kohot na ang self daw kay nagasugod as a vague image. Wala daw identity, mura daw og prototype na walay design. Pero eventually, magka-sense of identity ang bata habang gadako siya with the help of his parents. Okay, ano to? Ang next step is a child's narcissistic needs. So the grandiose exhibitionist self is established when the infant relates to a mirroring self object who reflects approval of its behavior. The idealized parent image is opposed to the grandiose self because it implies that someone else is perfect. So both narcissistic self-images are necessary for healthy personality development. Both, however, must change as the child grows older. If they remain unaltered, they result in a pathologically narcissistic adult personality. So, mao ni ang times kung kana bitaw nagapasikat ang bata, kanang nagasayaw-sayaw tapos sundugon kung sa ginabuhat sa mga tigulang kay feeling sa bata sila ang pwede makahatak og approval sa identity niya. Pero pod, if ang bata is dili pansinon habang nagapapansin siya o ginana, ang tendency kay mubaba ang self-esteem niya. Pero if pasubraan ra pod nimo sa point na unrealistic na, kay pagdakuha na mahimo na siya o narcissist like me. Joke lang. Next is John Bowlby's attachment theory. So, Bowlby firmly believed that the attachments formed during childhood have an important impact on adulthood, because childhood attachments are crucial to later development. Bowlby argued that investigators should study childhood directly and not rely on distorted retrospective accounts from adults. So there are three stages of separation anxiety. First is protest, second, despair, and third is detachment. So for protest, when their caregiver is first out of sight, infants will cry, resist soothing by other people, and search for their caregiver. Sa despair, as separation continues, infants become quiet, sad, passive, listless, and apathetic. And sa detachment, during this stage, infants become emotionally detached from other people, including their caregiver. So kay Bolby rather, wala niya gimension or wala siya nagmention sa mga types of attachment. Kay ang nagbuhat sa mga type of attachment, dari na mosulod si Mary Ainsworth. So si Mary Ainsworth, she was heavily influenced by Bowlby's attachment theory. And naka-create siya og experiments to determine what attachment styles kids have. Motong naka-come up siya with the strange situation simulation. So, kani siya ang strange situation. Experiment ni siya where hatagan nila ang mga bata og separation anxiety. Na ang bata daw, tapos ang caregiver niya kay pahawaon. Tapos na yung mga toys sa sulod sa room kung asa kibili ng bata. So, gihimo na niya sa daghan ng mga bata. Tapos, na-realize niya, pabalik-balik niya experiment, na-realize niya nga there are three types pala of attachments. Mao ni sila ang first, ang secure attachment. So, when their mother returns, infants are happy and enthusiastic and initiate contact. For example, they will go over to their mother and want to be held. So after a long period of separation, ang mga bata, pag makita ilang mama, kay gina-welcome gyapon nila ilang mama with open arms. Second is the anxious resistant attachment. So infants are ambivalent. When their mother leaves the room, they become unusually upset. And when their mother returns, they seek contact with her but reject attempts at being soothed. Okay, so the kid still seeks contact with the mother pero mapabebe siya. Ana. Ginapakita niya nga hindi siya ganan siya mama pero gusto gyapon niya ang contact sa iyang mama. And last but not the least is the anxious avoidant attachment. Mao niyang lala. With this style, infants stay calm when their mother leaves. They accept the stranger, and when their mother returns, they ignore and avoid her. So, kani nga klaseng attachment, mga klaseng nga bata, dali ra kay manlamig. So, pag muhaway lang mama, puliyag stranger. Mga sila bahala ka dara, madali lang sa stranger. So, muna siya ang tulo ka types of attachment na proposed ni Mary Ainsworth. Ang secure attachment, anxious resistant attachment, and the anxious avoidant attachment. So, yeah, I think maura to tanan ang report namo. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. And I hope makatabang ning pre-recorded video sa review ninyo about sa theory ni Melanie Klein. Okay. Bye.